Hey, payday, you want payday? I know that. Canelo Alvarez and his entire legacy will be massively tarnished if he were to lose to a welterweight, Terence Crawford. Crawford moving up in all the weight, yada, yada, yada. This is the sentiments from Chris Algieri. I'm going to go over his premise and give you guys my thoughts in this video. What up, Fight World? It's your boy, you going to back. Listen, there's a new interview on Fight Hub TV with Chris Algieri, and he points out something and gives his opinion. And he basically says that Canelo is in a lose-lose situation versus Terence Crawford is in a win-win situation. And he articulates why he feels this way. So I'm going to get into the quotes from Mr. Algieri. He says, quote, "The guy may do it, and if he loses, I don't really think it affects his legacy all that much. All the accomplishments that Crawford already has, they're not going to be forgotten. He's jumping up weight classes." And he says, so I think it's a win-win, lose-lose situation for these guys. Win-win for Crawford and a lose-lose for Canelo. That's a great point made by Crawford. That's a good way to get under Canelo's skin. Yeah, there's a lot on the line for Canelo because if he loses this, the tarnish on his legacy is massive. He lost to a welterweight. He lost to a lightweight. He was a lightweight world champion, right? Crawford jumped up 2 weight classes. He was 30-something. He's going to be 38 in September. There's going to be a lot of that. A lot of criticism Canelo has been receiving lately for not fighting certain guys is going to come back to haunt him that much more. I like Canelo, but he gets a lot of heat out there. So I think a loss here is going to be a lot more. A loss here is going to fan those flames, end quote. Now, the moment you've all been checking for ego thoughts, my thoughts, what do I think? I somewhat agree, and then I somewhat disagree. So let's start with the disagreement. I think it's a little unfair to picture and paint it out that Crawford doesn't hurt his legacy if he were to lose, right? I think that's such a blanket statement. I can't agree to that. For example, if Canelo knocked Crawford out, then I do think that hurts his legacy because right now he's Black Superman. You know what I mean? He had that performance with Errol Spence, And being fair, see the difference between me and a lot of people who do commentary, their bias creeps in and you could tell like what they kind of like and stuff. Me, I just call it straight down the middle. Crawford is a terrific fighter, but his legacy would be hurt. But it all depends on how it plays out. Because you can't just make a blanket statement and say it won't hurt Crawford. No way. It's a win-win for him because I vehemently disagree. If Crawford was brutally knocked out in a fashion we had never seen before, like Amir Khan or whatever, and then I'm pretty sure that would hurt his legacy because nothing like that has ever happened. Now, some people would make maybe an excuse for it and say, oh, it was because he got beat by a bigger person or whatever, but that won't matter. The imagery still remains. I mean, look at Devin Haney. Devin Haney lost and then the guy popped dirty, Ryan Garcia, but the imagery of him getting dropped and initially losing still haunts Devin Haney. So I totally disagree with Chris Algieri surmising that Crawford's legacy is still pretty much 100% intact no matter what. I don't think that because I think depending on if he were to lose and how he lost and, of course, the severity of him losing, like, again, if it was what Canelo did to Amir Khan, that very well would hurt Terence Crawford because so far, like, this is a fight you didn't have to take, and then to see you get splattered like that, that would not be good for his legacy. Does it change? He's been a 2X undisputed? Absolutely not. But to go out like that, it would be bad. Now, moving on to Canelo. I've said the same thing. I'm going to keep saying the same thing. Canelo Alvarez should be fighting David Benavidez. Point blank, period. I don't care what y'all talking about. It makes more sense. It makes more money. It's a better fight to me, in my opinion, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who would agree with that, right? And that was the fight that boxing needed, and Canelo refused to give it to us. Point blank, period. I'm not beating around the bush. That's what it is. Canelo had a ton of excuses as to why he did not need to fight Benavidez. 1 minute, I don't want to fight a Mexican fighter. The next minute, you're fighting Jaime Munguia. You're a cap, right? You say that he ain't beat nobody. Then even when Benavidez improved his resume and started fighting Lemieux, former champion, he started fighting against Andrade, the guy Canelo ducked, right? Demetrius Andrade, nobody has stopped him. Nobody has stopped him since that fight, right? So that fight, the Caleb Plant fight, Darrell, all these names, he started to improve his resume and keep fighting and beating and knocking out ranked guys. And then you say, oh, I don't want to fight him because he said a mean thing to me. Like, get over yourself, bro. So I agree with Chris Algieri that based on the Benavidez fight, especially, if you dodge that fight, then you're fighting a welterweight, former welterweight, because I don't consider Crawford a 54-pounder, even though he's a champion or was a champion there at 54, because he wasn't there long enough, right? So you haven't really earned your coin at 54. For the last better part of a decade, you've been at 47 or below. So most recently, you're a welterweight. That's what I'm going to call him. I'm going to call him Cassius. I'm going to call him Cassius, right? Not really a 54-pounder unless he stayed and beat Fundora, Murtazaev, blah, blah, blah. So there's that. So, yeah, I agree there that Canelo's legacy would be in shambles because, one, you keep losing to Black American fighters if you lose, and you're losing to, like, pure boxers, Floyd, Bivol, right? And then you lose to Crawford. That's another pure boxer. So you haven't improved in that way. And just to have somebody up against everything in terms of weight, no rehydration clause, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, it would be pretty catastrophic for Canelo to lose to a Crawford who everything is against him in terms of weight. Canelo's not cutting him no slack. I don't know what size ring they're going to do, but there's no rehydration clause, and Crawford's making the full jump. So, yeah, to get your ass beat by somebody smaller like that, that would be more impactful, and I do think it would hurt Canelo's legacy because you have to kind of look back like, well, you're not capable of beating somebody smaller, especially when people kind of question Crawford's resume. You know what I mean? Say he hasn't really fought a ton of like the better names at the prime spots of their career. So if you go in there and really just get cooked out, then yeah, that's going to be a bad look for your boy Canelo Alvarez. But for me, I've been saying it from the beginning, this whole fight is dumb. It really kind of doesn't make sense for multiple reasons. And like, for example, let's say Canelo loses to Crawford, right? Canelo loses to Crawford, then he's still getting paid $150 million. So if Crawford cooks him, to me, it's a waste. It's a waste of it for like that. It's not a super fight like Mayweather Pacquiao. So for him to get that type of purse for this type of fight and a loss, that's going to look foolish, you know? That's going to look foolish that you pretty much overpaid Canelo to not perform. I legit said this from the beginning. I have many, many worries about this particular fight. I don't think it's going to end well in terms of, I don't think it's going to be received well when it's all said and done. And I don't think it'll be the type of fight that lives up to whatever some of the expectations that I've seen from fans about this is a mega fight and fight of the century and oh my gosh, I can't believe it's happening. I don't think it lives up to that. We will see in a month, but I don't have good vibes and intuition about the fight. But I agree to Canelo, his legacy will be in shambles.